recording on. Looks like that's starting.
Yep, shows recording on this end.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I guess it is. I'm not seeing the little red dot.
I got it on my end.
Okay, that's good. Now we'll go where you're in. Couple of things I wanted to bring out up front, and you're happy to pitch in, give me your 2 cents worth. But I think a lot of people in the group, whatever the group is, Larry Becraft, lawyer in Huntsville, always talks about the Patriot Group. Seems to be more dysfunctional than functional, in his opinion and mine at times. But I think people make things really complicated. And there's a lot of credit to it. I guess Kurt Pendergraph and Chris and John have been doing, they went out and did their LLCs, signed up and did all that stuff. In the meantime, they're trying to act like they're free people. But how can you go back into the cage, get their TINs, their SSNs, their LLCs and all that, and stand up being a free individual? It doesn't work like that. And then last week, somebody was talking about the decree, which I brought up a good while ago. And a decree is above and more superior to an affidavit. And I've been using affidavits for years, and they're a very good and superior tool. But the law says that you need to decree and declare what you're doing because we are the sovereigns. And you've talked about that a little bit yourself. One thing about, and you've done some good videos on mailing, getting certifications and things like that. I've had a lot of success. For example, when I first rescinded my signature on driver's license, I did that a long time ago, almost 2 decades now. I just sent them an email, you know, and that took care of it. And the same thing locally, I did that with the driver's license, which I didn't have anyway, but I did with registration of 3 different vehicles. I deregistered them, gave them notice by email, asked them to give me confirmation back, and all of a sudden it was private property. You know, so you don't necessarily have to go to a lot of expense. And, you know, people talk about the straw man and doing all this and changing your name, upper, lowercase, and all these other things. I don't know that it necessarily has to be all of that complicated. Because if it's complicated, most people are doing it within the cage and within the existing system. What do you think?
Well, today I think I like to think of it myself as a form of dual educational implementation. The more we use these documents and enter these documents and construct these documents according to our own truths and put this information out there and show that these documents do have force of correcting that record, debasing that presumption by stating facts that are superior to the facts that they presume to be true. And by placing them in, on, and for the record in such a manner as by stating our status, our independent right of nationality, or freedom of association, freedom of expression. And I spoke recently on this in regards to the Second Amendment and what is it? It's all backwards. Everybody thinks we got this Second Amendment right to bear arms, R-I-G-H-T, to B-E-A-R, and then arms. And it's all backwards. We have an memorial bearing right, right being R-I-T-E, relating to ritual, tradition, that which is inherited from our family tradition of how we behave in any manner, whether it be spiritual or business-wise or family-wise or whatever.
Okay, good concept. I like that.
And that's, you know, that's the basics of that sovereignty. And this is spoken of in what's known as the Calvo doctrine, wherein one person, it's the concept that the one individual man has just as much sovereign power. It's not that he himself is sovereign, but he maintains the same amount of sovereign power himself in his one body, being independent of everything else, as any body of government entirely put together.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody said yesterday or day before something I had thought about a good while back, which doesn't matter, but effectively you are your own state. And that's
Yes.
what
Well, that's what status is.
yeah. And
State,
that's
us.
what that's what I presented to the United Nations the first time I went there. And that was over 10 years ago.
Yep.
And I had my own sovereign American passport. And in it, I had 2 pages. One was all the law that says it's the individual who's the sovereign. And on the other page, there was all the court cases and sites that said, yeah, that's what the law says.
Yep.
And what they did, they said, oh, yeah, we understand that. And they already knew what was going on and were very much aware of the world passport and had supported that for a good while. And they
Yep.
told me, because of my sovereign status, that if I ever went up against the government, whether it's federal, state, county, or whatever, they literally, and I knew this, what it is, but they acknowledged it as one sovereign against another sovereign, one being an individual and the other one being a nation. And they told me that the only place you could resolve any dispute would be at the World Court, which for this hemisphere is in Costa Rica. So the lady said, give me a few minutes. She went to the back and came out. She printed out a stack of paper about this thick. And it was all the documents on how to file your cases before the World Court over there in
Costa Rica.
Yeah, over in San Jose, Costa Rica. So, but yeah, and that puts it back to we are basically our own state. And
Yeah.
getting into this issue, a court case, well, court case, what you were talking about was quasi contracts in that one talk, which was excellent. Because when I went before the county here with this gal, they said they were a quasi judicial committee. You know, when they say quasi, well, we say it is, but it's not exactly. But as long as you buy it, we're going to sell it to you.
You know what that is? That means they got several people with their hands in the cookie jar.
Yeah. And they're all corporations in their own little damn departments.
Yeah.
So it's all collusion, racketeering. They are charging this gal 3 times for property tax what they charge anyone else.
Wow.
Okay. And another thing that I want to put out to people, they're simple and get your feedback on it. I looked at myself a long time ago and said, things are really fucked up. So I said, if anything's messed up, it's me. All right. So I looked to see what was wrong with me. And because that's the right way to do it. And I found out it wasn't me. Not only was it not me, but a lot of people have the same dang problems. So I look at myself and I go, well, what do I do about it? I go, number one, I don't know. So I say, well, I can't change anything in the world other than myself. So I'm going to change myself. And I made a commitment to myself that I thought was really dumb and easy. I said, I'm not going to allow myself to be abused by liars, crooks, and thieves, whether they're individuals, corporations, or government. So I thought that was easy, right? And you walk into a court and the judge says something, you go, oh, Your Honor, the law says this. And I thought the judge say, oh, yeah, Tag, you got me on this one. Yeah, you're right, the law says, but they don't do that. They go, we don't give a damn slam. But anyway, that's why, go ahead.
Yeah, they railroad you pretty good. They've got it down. They've been doing this for eons, and it's all been practiced
Yeah,
along the way. Every act is practiced before it's performed.
pretty much a science, and they do it for a living.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what that put me back to was the Declaration of Independence, because when I started my research, everything, you got to start at the Constitution, which means you got to go to the Bill of Rights. Well, first and foremost, the Ten Commandments. Then you go
yeah,
to the uh, what was it called? The Federalist Papers. If you're going to go through
yeah,
that, and then to the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. When there says it is are not only our right but our duty to throw off a despotic government. So I looked around, and after a whole bunch of years, that's what we got. So I
yeah,
put it in the public record that I've thrown it off when I rescinded my signatures to all of their contracts. And
yeah,
I'm the only one that I know that has ever done that and put it in the public record, not only but in several states, and had it authenticated by the Secretary of State, including Condoleezza Rice and Hillary Clinton at the federal level, but
yeah,
also down at the United Nations. And they go, yeah, we understand this. And the reason I went to the United Nations in a foreign country is because I had observed and experienced that we cannot find judges and lawyers to adhere to the law in our own country. So
yeah,
I thought, if you take those same laws to another country and they read it and go, yeah, we understand that. Yes, you're correct. Then that's just kind of like common sense and common knowledge and verification
yeah.
of the law.
Well, or we can start talking to that organization known as the Office of the Law Review Council.
Yeah, I've seen that active and mostly inactive. You know,
Yeah,
they don't say, yeah. I've actually been to court and had them sitting in there witnessing the judge, and the judges get all real nervous when all that goes on.
yeah,
But they keep it hidden, so you will never know that anything was done or what the outcome was.
yeah,
That's the way they write their statute.
yeah, yeah. They don't want to snitch on each other out in the open. They
Hmm.
want to keep it hush hush. Kind of like the priests and little boys.
Yeah. So where I'm sitting and coming from, we established Sovereign People's Ministries, and it's basically it's this defined as a faith-based community of self-governing people.
Yeah,
Nothing more, nothing less. We don't tell you what you believe in, what you can't believe in, what you do, what you don't. But we are a community of people who've taken back our rights, Ninth Amendment, our properties, the 10th Amendment, and I include powers and authority, the 10th Amendment, and you retain them and reserve them all to yourself. So once
yeah,
you do that, where does any legal fiction have any right, power, or authority over you? By law, they don't.
exactly.
Do I seem to be on track with that?
Oh, you're right on track. They have zero.
Yeah.
The basic thing about that's funny to me is that all of their statutes and everything, the the intent behind them is seeking economic substance, and that's why
Sure.
they place the fines, fees, penalties, um, restitution, and all that. There's some kind of commercial value to it, and yet this commercial value is known to have zero intrinsic value.
Hmm.
So the zero intrinsic value notes, Federal Reserve notes that they're using supposedly to purchase these bonds that supposedly have all this power in the commercial world, means that the bond itself has zero intrinsic value as well.
Right, right.
Now, and this is in connection with Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 8, where the obligations and other securities of the United States. And that's all financial instruments used within the commercial system here on America.
Right. And basically, we've been made a part of that as commodities.
Yeah. And so basically what it is, it's just a matter of ledgering, moving numbers from this account to this account and not doing it in accordance with law because nobody's asked for accord and satisfaction
Yeah, yeah.
through
Okay.
their commercial terms.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But this is basically stating it, when we get up there and correct that record and stuff, that's basically stating the same thing under lawful terms instead of commercial or legal terms.
Right, right. Looking at going into this county issue where they are billing this gal 3 times what they're doing to neighbors, and I won't get in. I'm not going to hypothecate why it's her versus somebody down the street, but seeing as they have already confessed and admit they're a quasi-judicial committee, they, number one, they can't be lawful. They're all appointed. No one's elected. So it's pretty much just racketeering. And in this community, well, the whole state, there's a huge segment of real estate that's like in the red, meaning it's non-performing tax-wise, it's abandoned property, it's for tax lien sales and all that stuff. And I mean, it's just like 50,000 units. Okay. So what the state comes in and says, okay, when we do property evaluations, you can't look at any of these.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
See,
we're
and
only going to
that's part of the problem.
that was part of the fraud.
Yeah, well, if you read through those documents, you'll see there's one in there, a case I put together for a gal out in Maine, and in there you'll see it's broke down into 9 articles, and the second article specifically puts forth into the record the defense that the parties are to be identified properly and in such a manner that there is no room for mistaken identity. And so
Yeah, I
this
saw
is
that.
where we clarify, I'm the live beneficiary who has a right to be secure in all my persons, property, houses, and papers and effects.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about our persons, we're talking about our estate persons, the ones that are able to buy and sell property in the commercial system and take liability, because the man doesn't take liability. He's the grantor of the trust.
Okay, I understand that. My question to you and my take for myself is I'm not a person. I never created a person, don't want a person. And so I don't look at myself as being one of those corporate type entities. I'm not a
Right.
fiction. I mean, this could hurt.
Right.
And I think that's the honest and integrity way to come at things. I'm not what the state created.
Right. And basically what we need to do is, like I said earlier, correct the record. And we do that by asking certain questions. In the case of that property tax, she's got to ask questions about the identification of all the parties involved, what their duties are,
Uh-huh.
and what the classifications of the property are that make it subject to those tax rates, because that will prove that it is erroneously recorded as such, because the intent of the purchase was to be private property.
Exactly. And during the purchase, they did 2 things. One, they instructed that they wanted the land patent brought forward to her name, which
Right.
they wouldn't do. Okay, and they
Right,
wouldn't do.
because there isn't one. It doesn't exist. They've obfuscated it.
Well, they bypassed it. It does exist, but they ceased doing that in 1933, bringing them forward by committing the fraud, is my understanding.
That'd be interesting to find out if we could get those records then.
Well, that's why we've gone and asked for the meets and bounds, because they still got meets and bounds. Okay,
Right.
but when they changed
Yep.
everything to partials and all the other crapola, all right, they tried to obfuscate, like you said, and cover it up.
Yep.
So if you go back to the meets and bounds, which we asked them to bring that to us within the
Yep.
next 10 days, that will tell us whatever that is. So she
Yeah.
went in and told her that she was buying it, number one, as private property. And in doing that, she wanted the land patent brought forward to her name. Well, the powers that be, the lawyer who's putting it together and everybody else said, oh, we don't do that. You've got to sign these documents. And then there says you got to do everything that the state tells you to do, basically. So he went in there and wrote down all rights retained at the bottom because we're not agreeing to that crapola. It was a private sale from one individual to another. They got paid, we paid. And so that should have been
Well,
the end of it.
yeah, if it's on the record as a private sale, then that's proof itself that it's a private sale, even if it's on the public record. It's
Well,
stated as a private sale. No matter whether they want to be third-party interveners and make a claim that it's taxable property, that just proves that, one, they've misclassified it because it clearly states the intent is private property.
right.
And second, that by that intent alone proves that if they have misclassified it, they have already mispresumed that they are a third party uh, to the action, which is wrong, and that makes them a third party officious intermeddler.
Right.
So it's just a matter of correcting that record, like you said, and making them pull those land patents forward. And when they don't, we can prove that if they can't bring it forward, we have the drawing right to draw up our own land patent.
Oh, okay. I can go with that.
We
Yeah,
can prove that there is not one on the record, and therefore to put one on the record would be a superior, paramount, and more rightful claim to the land and soil.
yeah, yeah. But the states claim, they have all the property, and the people are just users of their own property. And so one point I'm trying to push, and because they wouldn't bring the land patent forward, she put it in. Here's just kind of a little tricky. Only people I've ever known that has done this. You know what a trust is?
Right.
Okay. Kind of went into a private contract structured as a trust, structured as a common law sovereign exempt trust. All right. So it's not a trust, it's a private contract structured as a trust. Well, then they were told not to register it. But of course, they went down there, the lawyer did, and put it in there with the what do they call the judge down there? Okay, anyway, they recorded it down. Oh, probate judge. So
Probate.
yeah, they recorded it, and that was against the law. And he states that is against the law and unlawful in the contract. In the contract, the contract also states the laws under which the contract goes, which are all the laws that apply to each individual in their sovereign capacity. You've never seen a trust like this.
Yeah, because see what they did was they took his handwritten will. It was his will. It was his determination in that statement, and turned it around and made it probate.
Exactly.
To prove will.
Correct.
They have no right to even test the will.
Exactly.
It's already stated, and it's just law. It's supposed to be recorded as such. Give me my file date stamp and file number and everything, and let's get on with the show.
Yeah. Okay, well, it sounds like things are on track, and you certainly understand it, so I appreciate that a lot.
Like I said, if I can get some of this paperwork down here. I got to get get my hands on some of my certificates of live birth, get them authenticated. I've got the documentation to take care of Social Security, notice of foreign state status, and all that stuff that I'm updating here from that I sent you. I'm going to be updating those to a current version to send in, and let's call it rectify and correct the record, so I can actually start by opening my own private trust account at a local bank.
Yeah, okay. And I've helped people do that quite a bit. So if you need help along that, I'm sure you got a handle on it, but I can contribute some things.
So, hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the angles, because when we kind of disqualify ourselves by delineating our own research and so yeah,
we
I'll
put
certainly
blinders
reach
on.
out if I need to.
Right,
Put
right.
them blinders on ourselves.
Yeah.
That's pretty good training there.
All right. Another piece that you went off into was some of the law, and I'm not going to try to regurgitate it. I was just reviewing it about a half hour ago. But it looks like there's some opportunities to try to get some of our brothers and sisters, political prisoners, out of jail, because like you stated, that the House and the Senate did not come together with the same terminology for the laws. And
Right.
so the federal judges do not have the right power or authority to be putting these people in prison.
Correct. The only powers that they have in any of these district courts, we have to remember that the district courts are nothing but commercial courts. So therefore, their powers are nothing but commercial powers, no matter what branch of government.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's executive. It is nothing but a commercial power. Period.
How do we, and I'm flipping back, I think it applies to both, but flipping back a little bit to the county situation, how do we hold these individuals liable because they are appointed and they're basically sitting in there doing a job or trying not to do the job lawfully? But the damage that they're doing, and the time and the cost and expense and aggravation they cause other people for overbilling them for things. One thing, we were going in there to ask them to bring forward and prove who actually owned the property, because they're claiming it's an LLC. They're claiming that this private contract is an LLC. So that's something somebody pulled out their hind end, in order to charge.
Yeah, an LLC's got to be registered too.
Yeah, and there's no LLC. So they're just fabricating everything, which is racketeering and everything else. So how do we hold them liable, in their personal capacity?
When you look through those documents again, read that one about the case in Maine, and you'll know which one I'm talking about there.
Okay.
And read through that. That's got a lot of solid information that's going to cover a lot of the questions you've got going on here.
All right.
In regards to holding them accountable, you put forth a certain set of questions constructed in a way that backs them into the corner that they're supposed to be in.
Right.
Put them in their place.
Well, we're going in there
by structuring your questions in a certain way that it backs them right into a corner. They have to admit or deny, and they can't deny or they can't admit certain things, and therefore they can't really say anything, and that leaves what you say to be true, and therefore, expunge the records until the plaintiff can come forth with said requirements.
Yeah. Well, I think they're in a corner already, just going back to some of the law, because seeing as this is county, and the law actually states that a county is a person and a sovereign is not. So I'd be the only sovereign sitting in there, but everybody else are actors in their own personal capacity because the law states that a county is a person. Would that not be
Yep,
correct?
exactly.
Okay.
Anything that's given any kind of a title, any kind of title is a person.
Yeah.
It's a descriptive. A proper name, and it's a descriptive of what the real thing is.
Right. Like you said, a title.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Because we already claimed lack of jurisdiction when we were talking with the assessor, and he's going, he doesn't know anything about it. I said, it doesn't matter. You're sitting in a
Well, you
position. You're
see,
the
I'd have come right
representative.
back with, well, you should, because this is a problem for you.
Well, I told him, I said, you in this room right now, you are the representative of the state and the county and everything else. And you're required to know the law because you're sitting in that chair.
Yeah.
It's not the people. And so you are responsible to notify everybody that she's here just on special presentment. I didn't want to use special appearance because I don't want to do the
Right.
appear thing. So special present, questioning lack of jurisdiction. And I
Right.
said, you need to, knows principal, knows agent, knows agents, knows principal, same old, same old. And they already had the documents along with the schedule fee from the federal government and, her own declarations. So I think
Yeah.
we're on solid and rightful, lawful grounds. The
Yeah.
problem is, I keep saying, there is no law. There doesn't seem to be any law that any government official will adhere to.
See, and that's why we've got to bring forth the law. That's what I was saying about when it comes to this record. They're still working on presumption. And until each man stands up and starts bringing forth their law and presenting it like, hey, the people are waking up.
Yeah,
And we start filling these people up with this paperwork that actually does have force, and start enforcing it by our own experience. And then, of course, actions and reactions, abilities and responsibilities, and of course, providing for a greater wisdom in that use,
yeah,
so that we can continue to educate ourselves more and more and wake more and more people up to help correct the system ourselves slowly but surely through our own actions. It's the only way it's going to work. One man can't stand up and make his record known and make it available for everybody else and have all officials all of a sudden stand up and say, okay, we all recognize everybody.
right.
It's not going to happen. It didn't happen overnight. It's not going to correct itself overnight. And that's why we've got to do it and do it diligently, vigilantly, and vigorously.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I thank you for your help, and I hope I'm going to get that information you put out to some of the brothers and sisters that are in political prisoners right now, because I think that will give them a chance to get some kind of reprieve. Uh, and basically, I think about the people in Colorado because I knew a chunk of them
Yep.
and known them for decades. And the one I'm thinking about, we were real close friends, and he didn't involve himself in some of the off little off the things. They were there were some people, I think just a few, two or three, that started filing liens against judges and sheriffs and things. He didn't do any of that, and he never would. But I think he was mostly hammered, number one, because he's been successful standing up for the law, and number two, they didn't want him out there anymore, and so they tagged him for association.
Yeah.
But
That's
anyway, go ahead.
that's a hard thing to deal with nowadays, is that association. They keep an eye on us on here, and they've already got a lot of us on lists, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know
That just takes three
so
phone calls.
Yeah, yeah, tracking
All right.
everybody.
Well, anything else you want to put out to any listeners, or anything special news or anything
Um,
you want to?
no, well, I did want to say in regards to your reference to helping people get out of prison with this information. I think I did do a video at the beginning of the month where I referenced some material to that. I'll have to go back and review it and see if I can find it and pass that forward to you, because
Okay.
it speaks specifically, like you spoke of earlier, um, that these judges don't have any actual public law when it comes to these House and Senate bills and everything. When it generates from the House of Representatives, then it has to do with commerce. So when the House of Representatives puts a bill forth, in this case, but it goes before the Senate next, but it doesn't pass in the same form,
Uh-huh.
then it's not become law. It never becomes law. So it never gets a chance to become what's known as public law, which the House Joint Resolution, as we see in Public Law 70, or House Joint Resolution 192 and Public Law 7310, the House Joint Resolution is the House and joints. In other words, the House is joined together. It's their resolution to give a remedy to the people.
Yeah.
And so then they back that up with a remedy known as a public law, stating it for the public side, something for the common man to comprehend and be cognizant of. And that's your three-tier system. It's first got to be passed by the House or the Senate. If it derives from the House, it has to do with commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to be passed by both houses in exactness.
Yeah,
And
so it's got to
then
be word for word
Congress
all down the
passes a
line.
public law for it.
But it's got to be word for word down the line, same, right?
Correct.
Carbon copy.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All
And
right.
that's what's wrong with that. Well, a lot of laws that they say. People are up in arms when they hear a House resolution has been passed, or a House bill has been passed. That's just a House bill. It's still got to go before the Senate. And then when it goes before the Senate, it's either got to be passed in exact form, or when the Senate amends it, hands it back to the House, they have to accept it in that form or amend it again. And this could go on forever.
Yeah.
That's why you see a lot of these bills sitting in existence for decades. They're going back and forth, and they're just not coming into existence. They're still sitting there, and they even go through name changes.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, one thing. It they do a bill and then they pack all this crapola in there for money and things like that. I think a bill should be whatever its focus is and not include all this extraterraneous things for profit sharing or whatever the heck they're doing. What are your thoughts on that? I don't
Well,
know if that's lawful.
I think they do that because they've got to be such a huge conglomeration. When you look at some of these charts saying what companies are owned by what other companies, and what companies are sister companies, and what companies are parent companies, and what's the mother company, and blah blah, you know, tied in all these different products being associated with each other, they've just got so corporately conglomerate that they have to be able to set up enumerated numbers of regulations that can conjunctively work with each other, and still be um, implied as valid or have some kind of substance to them, when
Yeah,
they really don't. It's all nothing but commercialized. That's all it is.
right, right. Okay. All right. Well, appreciate your time tonight. Hope you did good and had a good Christmas. And thanks for
Yeah,
sending me the documents. I'll finish going over there and I'll look at the one you talked about for May.
yeah. That's an interesting one. There's some good information in there you'll like. And
Okay.
like I said, I'll look back through my information that I did on my videos here find that information on federal judges and stuff.
Okay, yeah, and if you find that one that'll help us get people out of jail, maybe that'd be kind of high priority on my list for me.
Yep.
Because
Sounds good.
I like to help these guys out if I can. Some of them
Yep.
got 35 years, you know, they'll end up dead.
I was just reading an article today. Some guy was in prison in 1982 for $9 theft, and he's still in prison.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. It's
36, 37 years. That's enough. Come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you call it 3 months or something, you know.
Yeah, that's not even supposed to be fifth-degree theft.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, God bless you, and you have a good evening. Thanks a bunch, brother.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Take care.
Anything I can help you with, brother?
Hey, we stand together. Later.
You bet. All right. Bye.